I mean, I know millions of people won't like what we do. No question of that. I put a lot of work into what I'm doing, and if people don't appreciate it, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm trying to make a living doing this and remain true to what I believed in from the beginning. And mission accomplished.
What the Melvins have meant to music, I've always joked that there should be a royalty based on influence.
The fact that they get to be the Melvins and do what they want to do and pay their bills off of it is very rare.
They just have a real strong discipline, how they do stuff.
They're fearless, they're just do whatever the fuck they want to at any point. And if the people want to follow along, great. If not, whatever. They just don't care.
The thing I like about those dudes is they don't follow trends, man. They sell.
Melvins, do they have a peer? Who's their peer? I don't have one.
If you're a little too ahead of your time, you don't get the credit until it's due.
It's like a kind of Captain Beefheart syndrome.
Hey, the Melvins are the Andy Kaufman of heavy music. Anyone back? Are you back there?
They have great ideas, and they're willing to, kind of anything goes. And I think that's real neat.
It really comes from Buzz and Dale. I mean, they've had several bass players, as we know, but it still sounds like the Melvins.
The Buzz and Dale thing, it's like they're like Cheech and Chong, They're like Batman and Robin. They're an amazing team.
I just think that there's a perfect chemistry there between those two characters.
There's some humor involved there. They don't take themselves that seriously, but they're very confident in who they are and what they do.
They're not weird guys at all. They're normal, red-blooded, good, honest, hard-working people.
They're like a force of nature. Not even a band. It's a force of nature.
I heard of them. Thought it was a stupid name. I was in a band called the Butthole Surfers, so I had no right to say anything.
At the end of the day, if you don't have a large vocabulary, you can resort to this. The Melvins are cool.
Why learn how to write something in 4/4 and stick to that? I mean, if you're just hearing something naturally in a different phrasing, it's unique immediately.
I didn't have a clue what heavy was until I actually heard that band.
I love Eddie Van Halen's guitar tone. I think it's amazing, but Buzz Osborne's way better.
Yeah, he's got some totally different style, but it sounds awesome.
perfect combination or collision of Black Flag, who I really liked, and Black Sabbath, who I also really liked.
Loud, tension, electrifying.
Melvins.
Every time, no matter what. If I go to the bathroom 5 times before they start, by the halfway in, I have to be so bad because I get so excited. The little and the man in the boat's going, I'm drowning.
Maybe in 100 years, all bands will sound like the Melvins.
You want a heavy rock band? Here you go, man. Try it on for size.
I have my own ideas about how things work. I believe in everything we do.
A lot of musicians are playing checkers. That motherfucker's always playing chess.
First off, you can't get lucky sitting on your ass. That's like there's this saying in golf. The more I practice, the luckier I get. It's like that's right. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And certainly musically. The more I practice, the luckier I get.
The fact that they're still doing it speaks volumes. And there's been a consistency to what they've done. They've never, they've changed lineups a million times, but it's always got a quality to it.
They're workers. They've got that ethic where they're always working and always creating, and that's why I really respect them.
Melvins are a good model for any young musician that wants to get into it and try to stay in it and survive. I think looking to the Melvins is a great thing. It shows how it can be done successfully and realistically and healthily and, come out unscathed at the other end.
The freedom that they kind of let you know that you have as an artist, even on a label or whatever, it's everything you're doing is yours to do what you will with it. And as far as your art project goes with your friends,
When we were first starting out, struggling to figure out what we were going to do, I was pretty sure about the music.
Oddly enough, like, most great dictators did, right? They came from like some border zone, where they were like nothing, an outcast.
I really don't care about that place. It just drives me crazy to even think about it. So the idea that we were able to put together an avant-garde weird band out of there.
I just started playing the drums. I'd probably been playing for a couple of months, and my friend Keith Foch was a good friend of Buzz's at the time, and he knew that Buzz was learning to play guitar, so he kind of brought us together.
I met Dillard in probably grade school. Yeah, it would have been grade school.
Somebody had said at school, hey, Matt has a guitar. He knows how to play guitar. So it was like, we called him up.
Mike Dillard's, his parents had a garage, and there's like this little room up there.
This is where the Melvins were born, in this room right here.
I can't remember what we were playing. I think it was just fun to put a few chords together in some kind of semblance of a song.
1983, when I met Buzz and Mike and Matt. I worked at a Taco Bell, and they'd come in for food.
Well, at that time, I was severely influenced by things like punk rock, but also I was really into things like Aerosmith, Judas Priest.
A lot of the punk rock stuff certainly came from Cream magazine. I knew about a bunch of that stuff because we all bought it because Kiss was always on the cover, And so that's how we learned about bands like Sex Pistols and Ramones and Stooges.
Riff rock, Black Flag a lot more so than Black Sabbath.
This one friend of mine had the Damaged record. And since I was joining a punk rock band, he's like, here, you should have this record, and gave it to me. And I remember putting it on and just, not hearing anything like that before. You know, it was like somebody turned on the blender. You know, production-wise, it was much different than any of the other heavy metal records. You know, it was much trashier sounding and intense. You know, but hearing something that different for the first time was just like, wow, this is really weird.
Buzz just lent me some records. He lent me Generic Flipper and Black Flag, and I really liked it.
They could listen to Flipper and Void and then put on a Neil Young record, no problem.
You know, the big question in my mind, and I don't know if the masses know it, where did the Melvins come from? Who was Melvin?
Oh, Mr. Melvin, Pete Lohman. Yeah.
I did not know until somebody told me, well, they had started up a group and they called themselves the Melvins.
Yeah, he was the manager of the store, basically the boss of all of his punk kids.
And the only reason they did that, I guess, was because of the fact I was constantly getting after them.
Pete. Yeah, thanks fucking Pete. The Melvins.
They could have gone for some heavier, cooler sounding name or whatever, you know, but they just, no, we're Melvins.
What a stupid fucking name for the world's heaviest band, the Melvins.
We just wanted a stupid looking sounding name for a bunch of stupid looking guys that didn't sound like Venom.
Oh, before the Melvins, we had a lot of names. The Nerve being one of them, I remember. And the Remainders with an A, with the circle around it. Anarchy A.
It would be a name for a couple of days and be like, nah, that's not going to be it. That's not going to be it.
Nothing that was serious.
We just stuck with the Melvins because I think we played a show or two as the Melvins, so now we're stuck with it.
I mean, they didn't even to call us like a real band by any stretch of the imagination to be. That's really being generous.
I didn't even know at the time until somebody had told me that they were in a singing group.
We pulled all kinds of stupid shit. We just throw the gear in the back of the van, drive up somewhere, plug in, and start jamming.
We would play anywhere we could.
Yeah. And then we played in Olympia was the very first show we ever played, and that was in the very first real show.
The Melvins are kind of a big deal then. They're from Aberdeen, but they played Seattle a lot.
And if we weren't playing a show in Seattle, we were driving up there to go to some other show almost every weekend, you know, just to get the hell out of Grays Harbor. it was like a relief just to get out of here and go someplace when there's actually some culture.
I didn't know for a while that they actually had a band. You know, they were like, we have a band. You know, they didn't even play them trumpet as far as I know. I don't remember. I remember seeing them after that, probably later in '84. And like, holy shit, their band is really good.
My last show with the Melvins was at a place called the Grey Door in Seattle, and it was this shithole club down in the basement of this building.
Dillard is married to the woman that he was going out with when I met him. You know? He lives in a house that's how far from the house you grew up in? Mile and a half. 3 kids, union machinist job. It's a different. It went down a different path than I did. You know. I mean, even if we hadn't done that, I would not have stayed there, and the chances are he wouldn't have left.
I had a lot of other stuff on my plate. I wasn't. My head wasn't in it. I wasn't. I probably wasn't putting forth the effort.
When we were looking for a different drummer after Dillard, we were looking for a drummer that could play heavy metal stuff. That's what we wanted. Yeah. Essentially, I wanted somebody that played like an Iron Maiden, somebody like that. You know.
Certainly Clive Burr from Iron Maiden was a big influence. You know, right before I joined the Melvins, I was listening to that stuff a lot. I was more or less a heavy metal drummer, getting into a punk rock.
And you guys had actually seen him play before.
Yeah, I saw him play some horrible cover band. Unspeakably bad.
He was in some really lame band that played after us. And I think I remember him telling us that a bunch of times that like everybody else in his band like hated us and like, what the fuck are these fucking punk assholes doing here and blah blah blah. And Kroger's like, I think they're kind of cool actually.
Some of the members of the band he was in wore spandex and played covers of Foreigner and REO Speedwagon.
Definitely the appeal was that these guys are playing gigs out of town. They were playing high school dances. They were playing places like Olympia and Seattle, and they had their own songs. That was the thing right there.
That would be me.
Chris Novoselic brought you guys over to my house.
Who?
Chris Novoselic. Taco Bell Employee of the Month, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I was hanging out with Buzz, and he's like, "Well, do you know any drummers?" I'm like, "I know 2 drummers, Dale Crover and Aaron Burkhart."
The day that they came over, before they came over to my house, my mom was saying, "You gotta get in a band that's gonna do something.
Melvins came and asked him to join them, and so he did.
You know, play gigs and stop messing around with these other guys."
Chris brought them over, and
Yeah.
there you were.
Yeah.
In the band.
Later on, she goes, "I didn't mean you had to do it today."
You tell you can play drums, you know. I mean, sometimes that doesn't make much difference. I mean, if you got some, chowderhead guy, I mean, it doesn't matter how good they are, you can't stand to be around them.
I saw him in like a shed, big barn somewhere outside the city, and I don't know where it was, but they really stuck with me, and I thought they were amazing. And then Deep Six record.
Maybe get a compilation, bring some other bands who are kind of onto that. He goes, "Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we should get like Malfunction on it." The Human goes, "Yeah," and I was thinking of the Melvins, and it goes, those 5 bands, maybe I think they might have some interest in doing 5 bands. So we just round it up to 6, 3 bands on each side.
They were bringing in bands for weekend little sessions, a couple hours, you'd be in and out. You didn't see any other bands or anything, and then the record came out, and so we were given our copies and went home and played it, and they just blew me away on that record, because I thought we were gonna like kind of be a little heavier than anyone else on the record, and that would be good for the band. It's the first time we've been on a record, and this might be a good step for us. And then the Melvins crushed us.
No one gave a shit. Play some CCR. That's all they wanted to hear.
They were all dressed up like in Star Trek uniforms, each with a different color shirt, and started playing, and we were just kind of standing there with our mouths open, and it sounded great. It was really loud, but the sound was amazing, and it was so aggro that anyone that didn't completely get it, love it, left. And so all of a sudden, 3 songs into it, our mouths agape. We kind of looked around, and there was about 2/3 less people in there.
But that's how it was early on. People just hated the band, like us at all.
And we thought, awesome, that's amazing.
Entire place is cleared out except for me and about 6 people. So I knew they were on to something, because I was like, this is the future of music.
And it's very sophisticated music, and so it was like deep, and then it was really heavy, and it was tight, and that had a big influence on Nirvana when we started to play.
Right before they recorded the record, I saw them play a bunch of times, and they played the album kind of front to back.
That to me is when the whole scene finally came together. That set that you guys did, that's when everybody just went, now we have something. Wow. You guys were the band that showed, boom, we have something.
That solidified how great they were.
After that, they were sort of a staple. We in a sense, kind of looked up to them. Like, there were only a couple bands at that point.
When those guys started doing the slow plodding thing, no one was fucking doing that. Not even fucking close.
I think we played with Clown Alley in '84. '95 at this warehouse. The guy that we met at that show was Victor Hayden, who was this older guy, kind of artist guy, hanging around, and he liked the band. But anyway, not long after that, decided that he was going to start a record label and got a hold of us. And one of his partners was actually Mark Dutron from Clown Alley.
Yeah, I remember when my time in the band came to an end. It was right after we recorded that first album, The Gluey Porch Treatments.
Certainly Buzz and Matt were growing apart.
As far as writing songs, yeah, no, I didn't have a lot of input. Buzz seemed to have a handle on it, and knew what he wanted, and I'm like, I don't know what he wants. I'll just play what he shows me to play.
And right before we recorded it, he was just not having an easy go with what we were doing.
Buzz had met Lori, who was playing bass in a band called Clown Alley. And they started hanging out, and next thing I know, Buzz wanted to move to San Francisco.
So Buzz was starting to date Lori, and he was starting to go down to San Francisco a lot more and hang out there. And had pretty much decided that he didn't really want to stay in Aberdeen anymore.
He's like, I'm getting out of the music business. I'm just moving down there to be with Lori. I'm not playing music anymore. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, whatever.
There's a lot of little personal issues about him that I just couldn't deal with.
I think I told them, like, well, I don't really have any reason to stick around here. And I think that he thought that moving to San Francisco and starting a new band. You know, and I was like, well, I'd be interested in going down there.
So they move on down there, and then lo and behold, within a month, they're already playing shows. It's the Melvins. Dale living down there in their house. And I was like, well, that's kind of the opposite of what Buzz told me.
I think I kind of talked him into like, well, it's two of us. Why do we need to change the name?
Melvins break up. Then we hear a little bit later that, well, Dale and Buzz moved to San Francisco. Why there? What? Were they going to do music anymore? Apparently, yes. What are they going to call it? The Melvins.
I'm trying to think when Buzz moved. He probably moved down fall of '87. And then I moved right at the beginning of '88.
He was moving to San Francisco. He was supposed to pack up his stuff so that it wasn't all over the bedroom. And instead, he went off and recorded with Kurt.
November, December of '87. I started playing with the Nirvana guys.
And we went up to Reciprocal with Jack and Dino. And it was myself and Dale and Kurt and then Jack, and we recorded this demo.
They had asked me to join, but I'm like, well, I think I'm going to move to San Francisco and we're going to try to continue on.
Dale was destined to be a Melvin, and we knew that.
Kurt was actually the last friend in Aberdeen that I think was really my friend, you know, who he was there when I left.
Well, at that point, we really didn't have much of an audience. We couldn't get a show in San Francisco. We certainly couldn't get one in LA, you know. Not for a long time after that.
But yeah, even in San Francisco, I mean, it basically was starting over.
We started completely from scratch.
For years they played and people didn't really show up, and eventually they just made themselves a crowd because they were so fucking good.
When I got to the Bay Area, I got a re-education, and the Melvins was probably the first part of that re-education, you know.
Well, it wasn't so much that they played slow, it was how they played it, you know. Because it was slow, but there was so much action.
and they were into tone. You could tell, and it was like it was part of the whole thing, and kind of just made it different and unique.
It crushed my childhood, you know. It made my guitar tone do this. It like, you know, it was aspiring.
I think they introduced a lot of different bands. Like, this is exactly how powerful you can make music with just a 3-piece. Yeah.
Was it weird to have Shirley Temple's daughter in our band? Fucking weird. That's really weird. It would have been weirder to have Shirley Temple in the band as well.
We liked Clown Alley. You know, I thought they were great. And, you know, Buzz was like, well, what do you think about playing with her? I'm like, sure, let's give it a shot, you know. We had been in San Francisco for a while, and we were starting to get gigs. We played this place called Covered Wagon in San Francisco a lot.
I saw them live in San Francisco, and, you know, they were great.
And we were looking for a label. We've been looking for a while. We sent packages to a bunch of different places.
Played Covered Wagon in San Francisco. We would talk about doing a record.
I remember he showed up at the gig. I'm like, oh, so you might be interested in signing a band. He's like, oh, yeah, I want to see you guys first. But typical Tom, he never seems really excited about something, you know. So it was kind of hard to read at first. Like, maybe he's not interested. And then after he saw us play, he's like, yeah, I think that I can do it. Okay, great.
They wanted to have enough money to record it. It was a nice studio, and that's how we did Osmond. I would say Osmond is just like, that's to me that's one of the perfect records in the world. You know, I put that up there with like Back in Black or Sabbath Volume 4.
Once we were on Boner and selling a little bit of records, he paid us fair, and with that, and then touring right around the time of like especially Bullhead. That's when things really started to kick in. You know, it was also when all the other Seattle stuff was starting to take off. But we were able to tour and make enough money off of records that we were able to quit our jobs. First tour, she couldn't do it because she had some health issues. And so that's when we asked Tom if he wanted to do it. And he said, sure. And I think we had him learn our set. We practiced 3 times and played the show. You know, he was really good. I mean, he was already familiar with our music since he put out our records, but he's one of those guys that can just pick stuff up really quickly.
Before I went on the first tour with them, I think they had already recorded Bullhead. I knew we were playing those songs.
Bullhead was great with Boris. That song Boris, that was another song that was like, whoa, this is like they're just stretching it, making it slower and heavier, and no one was really doing that those days. Not with like a punk influence. You know what I mean? There was like Saint Vitus and Pentagram and Trouble and The Obsessed, and those bands were awesome, but they all kind of had this sort of metal thing happening.
そうですね、もちろん、ブルーヘッド。まあ、僕らのバンド名の由来でもあるボリスが入ってるブルーヘッドが一番大好きなアルバムですね。
He did a couple tours with us. He did that one, and then I think Lori was back in. We did a tour of our first European tour.
Pretty soon after that, they started working on Eggnog. That was with Lori. They wanted to come out. We wanted to call Eggnog to have this whole Christmas theme for the song. We wanted it to be released like in the middle of the summer. But it turned out it kind of got, by the time it got released, it was more like September or something. So it was kind of confusing. Like, is this really a Christmas album?
The first one I really remember really grabbing me was Eggnog.
And I remember thinking that it seemed more metal than I was used to listening to, which is a weird thing in retrospect. I remember liking it a lot, especially those high vocals that Buzz does on that record are pretty great. And I remember going to a Cows rehearsal and saying, wow, you should hear that new Melvins record, it's pretty cool. And that's the person I remember really hitting me in a way that I understood.
We knew Joe through, I don't think how we knew him exactly, probably through the Nirvana guys, probably through Kurt. When we're thinking of bass players, we're just like, what about him? You know, he might be good. He knows our stuff really well. He's a fan. And I think we actually called the Nirvana guys to say, "Hey, we're looking for Joe. We want him to join our band." And they ran out and found him and told him to call us.
Sometime in '92, they started on the 3 solo EPs after Joe joined.
I think we'd already had the ideas to do solo records by the time we got him in the band. And he was a bit confused by the solo record thing. You know, it was a weird idea.
When the Melvins decided to do the solo records, and it looked very similar to these Kiss solo albums that came out that everybody lambasted and which still went platinum anyway. It said something a lot about the band, which is at the end of the day, when you go to your grave, because we're all going to get our turn, you can't do the I wish I woulda, coulda, shoulda. They live life in the here and the now.
Joe, I remember him saying that he felt like it was kind of like a homework assignment, you know, and which I was kind of like, really, you know, I'm really excited about this, you know, and you feel like it's more of a chore, but fine. I mean, you know, he did his and his came out good. A lot of people really like his a lot. So, you know, and I think that eventually led him to realize that he could do it by himself, you know, which is what he did after we kicked him out of the band.
I basically was working at Razor's Edge, and they were sort of one of the bands that, you know, was a regular there.
We went in and did the Night Goat 7-inch there. And Jonathan, I can't remember what happened, but he didn't show up. And so that's when Billy Anderson was there, and he was the second engineer at Razor's Edge. And so we just, since Jonathan didn't show up, we worked with him.
I knew them from being around the studio and, you know, seeing them live. I worked at the Kennel Club at the time, and they played there a lot. And super fan. Like I loved those guys. And then I ended up recording a lot of the vocals on Lysol.
Lax is the well-known water. Lax is the well-known water.
Sound of that record is huge. You know, that's like one of their biggest sounding records. And I know they didn't print titles for that, but when I heard the titles for those songs, I was like, these guys are cool because they're just hilarious. Like Hung Bunny, Roman Dog Bird.
As mentioned before, the record Lysol, that's a very important record for me personally and for, you know, influencing Son.
And then the whole thing with Lysol, I guess Lysol gave them a cease and desist, or threatened to sue them, the company Lysol, and so they had to, Boner had to go back and put like black stickers over where it said Lysol.
First time I heard Melvins, oh, this is the Melvins sound. They're not trying to copy something that's really great. Like, I can't say that's true for me at all. When I first heard Nirvana, I was just like, okay, that's not new. But,
yeah. When Nirvana came out, you're like, what is this new album? Jimmy here? You just like, I immediately was very dismissive of any sort of post Melvins thing. I mean, of course, I came to really enjoy Nirvana, but the first Nirvana record was obviously very, very deeply influenced by the Melvins.
Well, we certainly have created our own cottage industry, that's for sure. Entrepreneurs create something out of nothing, you know? Essentially, I think that's what it is.
this relationship with Tom Hazelmar is perfect. He's a brilliant businessman, and he likes doing what he's doing, and he, you know, they've given up on the music business model because it doesn't work. If it ever worked, it doesn't work now.
I've got this idea that not everybody in the world is going to be satisfied with an MP3 and want something that, you know, they're going to want something that's more tangible.
I'm trying to do this thing with art meets records. I don't want to do a record label the way I did it before, which was like trying to take it on an independent level and do exactly what indies do, get a distribution, try promotions, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I just want to make fucking art, and I want to make records because I love both of those things. And he was like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
A lot of what we're doing is based on how the vinyl toy industry works, the collectible vinyl toy industry, which I love. I love all that stuff.
We're only able to make 500 of these when we've got 3 months to get the job done. That's what we can handle. That's what we can actually physically make, physically ship out, and get done. So that's what we're going to do.
Well, your vinyl's so expensive. Well, I'm not making it for people who can't afford it. You know, if you want the music, it's online somewhere for free. I'm sure you can find it. That's the most important thing, you know. But you're always going to have somebody who complains about something. And I just can't listen to that kind of stuff, you know. I mean, the music industry is such now that if you want something cool, you're going to have to pay for it, you know. If you're interested in the music, you can probably get that for nothing. There's never been a time in history when that's been the case. And now it is. It's easier now for people to hear any kind of music they want to, and they still bitch.
So it's like we're making stuff that's in the moment. You can only get this here if you were here, you know. You can't have everything. Fuck you, kid.
You know, change or die like the dinosaur. That's fine with me. I'm up for the challenge, you know. So you have to kind of think of new things to do.
We are able to do 30 fucking things because it's a small run. It's done and we're moving on. And that's the shit that keeps it fresh and exciting as a musician or as somebody who produces art or releases records. That's what I'm in it for. I like making shit. I don't want to make something and then spend 2 years pimping that thing I made. I want to make it, sell out, and move the fuck on.
Let's just take it all the way back to square one and go backwards to where, you know, we're hand making a lot of stuff and selling it at a higher price than you would normally sell it, and not selling it to any stores.
Art edition small run thing for a tour with Night Goat was Buzz's idea. You'd have to ask him. I don't even know. It's like he said, like, I want to redo Night Goat. Fuck, sounds good to me. I'd love to redo the art. You know, the original artist, Harvey Stafford, phenomenal fucking artist, great guy.
Night Goat is my favorite song of all time. And I like the single version, especially that Weird Machine or whatever that is.
This is up there with fucking anything Black Sabbath ever did, or fuck that. This is up there with the fucking Stones or Beatles. You know, this is one of those moments where you get goosebumps and you can feel it. You know, that intro, you're like, what the, you know, that song was fucking monstrous. And if it was a Just World, that would have been a top 10 hit. Listen to that song 1,000 times, but it still had to have the call. What's the fucking song about? I mean, the way I listen to music, I don't give a shit what they intended. I just take it my own way. So it's like, what was that about? Junkies, heroin. All right, I'm gonna do art based on junkies and heroin and goats. Go. Being able to redo a classic, sure, you know, fucking I'm all over it.
There's enough people out there who appreciate this stuff on a small level, and that's good enough. You know, I'm very satisfied with that. It couldn't be more hands-on. It couldn't be more grassroots.
It's interesting, Buzz being married to Mackie and the way that their sensibility became more refined graphically sophisticated yet still had that sort of quirky sense of humor to it. The combination of the two of them is really powerful. And I had no idea until later that Mackie designed that social distortion, the skeleton with the martini glass. I remember making a homemade stencil of that back in the 80s.
I think what Mackie's doing is like this very like beautiful sort of polished kind of like, it's almost like fine art, you know. And then it's like the Melvins, so it kind of goes perfectly hand in hand in a way because you don't expect it. If you know the Melvins, then you know that that's funny, kind of, you know. And so, you know, like a little cute dog on the cover and stuff, you know. So
Yeah, I bought that book. It was really awesome. Like, you know, just 20 years of the Melvins art and Mackie and all her art or whatever.
Lots of cool stories.
Yeah, lots of cool stories and just great live photos.
Her aesthetic for the Melvins is dead on. I also like all the little weird special packaging things they do, like reissue something with like letterpress covers or silkscreen covers or whatever it is.
The more hands-on you can make stuff, the better it is, because in this internet download world, you know, don't you think? That's how the CD covers all come out. Put these together, and then I think they're totally one of a kind, you know, really weird art, you know. And then that's a normal one. Then you still have to sit there and glue it all, turn it into a CD package. It's pretty crazy. Well, she got the print or the press first, and we kind of went from there. Once she decided to do that, I mean, I was like, "You're gonna get a what? You know, a giant printing press and figure out how to do it all and basically remodel the whole thing." She did it all herself, you know, and I was just like, "Okay, go ahead." Then we realized, you know, well, we could do printing, you know, at our house and not have to have, you know, ship it out to somebody and just do it all hands on. I mean, all this stuff has our fingerprints on it, you know. I mean, it's couldn't be more homespun, you know, which I'm kind of into. I mean, it's not for millions of people. It's for a few people, and for the few people that really appreciate it, it's very special, you know. For the people who don't care, they never will care. People who care, it's a big deal, you know. I don't want a big warehouse. I don't want to run a warehouse and have a warehouse full of albums. That's not me, you know. I don't want to deal with record stores or distributors. I want to have that happen. So we put things out in a wide variety of ways on a small scale. We also will end up putting most of it out on Ipecac in a regular way, you know. So you can have it both ways, and people still bitch. So you know, you can't win.
They're basically a DIY band, a well-known DIY band, but they do things, whether it's releasing records, just that, you know, everything they do is on their terms.
One of the reasons I first started stenciling and screen printing on old wallpaper was because of the Melvins Bullhead cover. I would go and I would buy discontinued rolls of wallpaper from this hardware store in Providence. It just had backstock, 50 cents a roll, because it was all this really lame 70s kitschy fruit and stuff on, you know, flowers and fruit. And then I would do an Andre Devil head over it, something where the imagery I was putting on there totally contradicted the background. And that was really inspired by the Melvins.
One of the guys from Caroline told Tom Flynn that you guys would sell a lot more records if your record covers didn't look like they do.
Some fruity looking, you know.
Some tablecloth fruit bowl for a record cover.
Gave him a big speech about how we were screwing everything up, you know? Yeah. He's probably selling canoes now or something.
You know, I think Buzz is kind of something, you know, like something of a fetishist about, you know, collecting things and about, you know, his own obsessions, and that's manifested through Melvin's output.
Well, it goes from our hands to the people that buy them. That's it, you know. So but it's a lot of work. Punk rock spoke to me in a much more intimate way, and I like that more. It's more hands-on, which is transferred into what we're doing now. I mean, if people want to argue with me about the price of stuff, then it's time for me to raise the price, not lower it, you know, because nothing pisses me off more than somebody telling me what I'm doing wrong, you know.
As a label, look at, you know, musicians as my clients. he's the best fucking client. You know, he trusts me implicitly what I'm gonna crank out or think of, and vice versa.
You know, I really respect their business model. They've got a good thing going on. I think Melvins fans are really lucky.
Around that time, I think, Nirvana had come out, so it was a big, all that madness started. So it was obvious they could get a big deal, and they needed to do it.
You're on the verge of signing with Atlantic Records. I knew if we signed that contract with him on there, I would regret it.
Just being able to get along with somebody, on tour is hard enough. I mean, if you're in a bad mood, that puts everybody else into a bad mood. And Joe was really moody, so that was the main thing. Just being able to get along with somebody. It was just Buzz and myself on the deal. So we played with Lori for a little bit. The tour that we did with her in Europe that time would have been, Lysol would have been out already, but we did Reading. I'm trying to think when that was.
Nirvana blew it up for everybody. Like, they blew the doors wide open as far as bands, that wouldn't have been recognized. And Kurt spoke openly about how awesome the Melvins were.
Nirvana just dropped their album. September of '91, I got my gig there, and their album just came out. 3 months later, they were the biggest thing in the world.
We went with Atlantic because the Stones and Led Zeppelin were there.
Aretha Franklin.
Atlantic wasn't a destination. Electra was cool, Geffen was cool, but we weren't cool. Atlantic was not cool. So when we signed the Melvins, we got pretty cool for a minute.
Well, I mean, really, when we got signed, I think the only people that didn't think it was going to work were me and Dale. We never had any ideas. I never really had any ideas we were going to sell millions of records. Did you?
No.
Danny Goldberg always thought that the Melvins would be our Sonic Youth. Sonic Youth got signed by Geffen Records, and then that allowed Hole and Nirvana to sign to the label because they felt good about going to a label that already had Sonic Youth on it. We felt like the Melvins were going to be an attraction band, and to an extent they were.
I mean, A&M also told us basically we would go over there and be Soundgarden Junior, at A&M, which I didn't have much interest in.
Capitol had the Butthole Surfers, and all kinds of bands were being signed that never ever would have been signed, basically because Nirvana hit.
It was like throwing pasta at the wall, boiled pasta, and see if it sticks.
They basically said to us, "You guys are an already established band. We like what you do," and we even went in there and played them Lysol. What do you think of this? This is what we're putting out next before we sign in this deal. Oh, okay, cool.
Sounds great.
I walked in to the show, and the Melvins were playing with their back to the audience. And the crowd was going absolutely bananas, hating them, calling them names, throwing shit at the stage. It was like out of a vaudeville show. It was crazy. And then they just walked off the stage. And they knew I was coming to see them. And we went backstage, and Buzz comes up to me, "You still want to sign me?"
Everybody was shocked, and it was like pulling a rabbit out of a hat. It was like a magic trick, which is why he called the album Houdini. It's like, it's a magic trick. We got signed to a major label. And yeah, Kurt agreed to produce it, or put his name on it anyway, which definitely helped.
We started recording Houdini at Razor's Edge and did maybe 3 or 4 songs, recorded and mixed.
The day that we were supposed to start, there was a power outage in the entire neighborhood, and of course, Kurt and Buzz were hours late, but they showed up, and we were, me and Jonathan and I think Dale were sitting in a dark room just waiting for the power to come back on. and the whole day was a wash. Like everybody had to go home. I played bass actually because by then Lori was out of the picture. After Buzz got back from LA, Lori Black was out of the picture, and so there was no bass player. Buzz played on some of it, and I played on Teat and Hag Me. Because I had been playing bass at a couple shows too. At the New Music Seminar, I played bass at 2 live shows. So it just made sense, and it was easier to just have somebody who was around rather than teach somebody new, I guess.
Everybody could play bass on that record. Flea played, Bootsy Collins. He came in. Yeah.
We brought in Garth Richardson, who was a veteran of hair metal bands and stuff.
Atlantic suggested this guy Garth.
And we liked it. I was really hesitant to work with somebody like that.
He was a character like Buzz, and him and Buzz got along great.
He came in right at the end. Lori was out. Cobain was out. We only needed like 3 or 4 more songs to finish the record, and so it was like the last recording session. And we picked this studio in San Francisco, bigger studio, and Garth was great. He came in and brought like a whole PA system, and his philosophy of recording was we're going to make it like you guys play live. You'll be more comfortable that way. We're going to have a big PA system in here. We'll mic the drums, we'll mic the bass, mic the guitars, and then mic the PA that way. And then you won't have to wear headphones. You can have wedges behind you to record, and it'll be great. And that was awesome. He wasn't worried about things bleeding or having everything isolated and having it perfect. I mean, rock and roll record.
Time is a big one. Only have to split soul. Mystery of Oakland. And the Christian ballgame.
They could have watered their music down for Atlantic and made a real run at making just a normal, commercial hard rock record. But those 3 records they did for Atlantic are 3 of my favorites. They're Melvins records. I mean, they're true to who they are and what they are.
Houdini had only been out for way less than a year when we were like, we want to go in the studio and record right away again. And we wanted to do it with Garth.
Stoner Witch was the first time we actually played with somebody in the band who contributed something musically to the band.
Before that, when Joe was in the band, Mark was doing sound for us. And I mean, we've always had people in the band that we've known and friends of ours. And we just decided like, oh, he's been on tour with us and knows the band well, has produced our records. So we thought that he might be a good person to play bass.
Mark is very self-assured. I think that's the one thing that comes across the strongest with Mark. Is he's very. Some might call it cocky. Some might call it self-assured, but he definitely knows what he likes or what he wants.
I always thought Mark was a talented guy, and we'd never had anybody quite like him before play with us. He also played guitar.
Mark definitely, did more fills and played, a lot of counterparts and more accompanying parts, and not necessarily the same thing. So that was cool. That was definitely cool. Yeah, Mark actually had some songs. I mean, he was a songwriter in Clown Alley, so it makes sense.
We just let him do whatever he wanted. I always wanted to let people do whatever they wanted.
where we could go to A&M Studios and record on their kind of downtime. And his second engineer was Joe Barisi.
It encouraged creativity, which, I mean, that's like an engineer's dream, man.
We wanted to do stuff that was different and weird and play with the studio.
That's one of our weirdest records, I think.
It was a fucking cool record. We got it done fast. We got it done fairly cheap. And man, there was some great songs on there. So what are you going to say to that? I mean, really?
We were touring with the Melvins, and I believe I came up with the brilliant idea to dress as Buzz for Halloween. And I was like, why don't we all dress as the Melvins? I was Buzz, Dee was Dale, and Jennifer was Mark. Susie from our band ended up being the Stoner Witch. You get bored on the road, so you start to, especially we would do hijinks things all the time.
Actually, maybe you can give me a tiny bit more? Sure.
No.
That's cool.
We always did them with the idea that the money that we were going to get was all we were ever going to get, And I'm sure that stands to this day,
Yeah.
And so when they want to do the Stag record, I couldn't believe it.
For Stag, we went and we were going to do a few different studios.
Stag was definitely a different record. We attracted it at a smaller studio.
So it wasn't as an expensive record as Stoner Witch, but it was still, we're still recording in pretty nice places. We did like months and months and months of touring. Opened for Helmet for a long time, went to Europe for a big tour, and then came back and we wanted to do another record. And, by that time, everybody that was at Atlantic when we signed were all gone.
Usually how it works is that like somebody down in like royalties looks over the statement and goes, you know what, this band is like $3 million in the red. I mean, like, what are we doing? We got to get rid of these guys.
Here's this band that, had a lot of potential, and then they were just cut short because of some bean counter at a label.
Rather than going, okay, this band's a weird band, and they've got their own audience and already, what can we do differently? They didn't think that way at all.
In the 70s, they would develop bands and give them a chance to put out 2-3 records. And then in the 90s, it was just brutal. Like, you kind of got to have that one hit right away, or you're not getting at it on the radio or whatever. Then they just drop you, they shelve you.
So we knew we were done. And we're like, we're going to record this record anyway. We're going to do it with Joe, and we're going to do it really quick.
Those fuckers are punctual, man. I've never seen a band say, yeah, we're going to start at noon and show up at 11:59. Plug in, okay, I'm ready, and it's like noon.
And I think that we already had that record done when we were talking to Atlantic about our next record.
You'll always have a home here to make whatever kind of records you want.
They wanted us to wait and hold off, let them think about it for a while and decide whether or not they wanted to do a fourth record.
We don't do special packaging for bands that haven't gone gold.
Ready to hit the button. Like, all right, I'm going to press it, but I got to read the word because Atlantic's being all weird.
You should consider yourself lucky. Any other major label would have dropped you by now.
We're like, well, we don't want to sit around and wait. We want to work. just tell us now. Do you want to do another one or do you not? And then they decided, okay, now we don't want to do another one.
At least your records are in the stores.
You know, that record was ready to rock the second they said, yeah, get the fuck out of here. Boom, we were running with Honky and going, you know.
The people here in radio just don't like your band.
The Melvins were in a place where they could always go back to their independent roots. They always had friends at labels.
But we won't do a thing unless the single moves.
That could have been Atlantic, but, you know, they were too busy doing Hootie and the Blowfish or fucking whatever. So good for me. You know, you dipshits in New York don't know shit. Us fucking rubes in Minneapolis will fucking jump right on it.
And as soon as we were dropped, we then toured for what, a year after that?
Yeah.
So after we were dropped, with a new album out, because I knew that, you know, we didn't want people to think we were finished.
We saw a lot of bands that were kind of in the same situation where they were on a major label, got all this more special treatment, touring wise, would get a bunch of money from the label to tour in a bus and things like that. And then once they got dropped, because they didn't have that anymore, they felt like they couldn't go back to an independent and do things how they did before, so they just break up. And we were very conscious, like we're not going to do that. You know, there's no reason to. We were making money and doing fine before we were on a major label. If this whole thing doesn't work out, we'll just go back to doing things how we did before. So that's what we did.
We didn't have a lot of supporters, you know, as far as that's concerned. And, you know, now it's to the point where as long as I keep my feet moving and working, it'll work.
I got a call from Buzz. He's like, I think I want to kick Mark out of the band, which I didn't think would happen. You know, really? Those guys are really pretty close.
Problem is not that I don't want to do this. It's that I don't want to do it with him.
All of a sudden, we got an offer to open up for Tool and do a few shows around Los Angeles. And we're like, okay. We knew we didn't want to play with him. And we thought of getting Guy, the bass player from The Obsessed, to fill in while we thought of what to do. And so we hadn't had the chance to talk with Mark about anything yet. And we went ahead and confirmed these shows. And then all of a sudden, Mark shows up in town without telling us, saying he was here to do his solo record. I'm like, oh. And he wanted to do some stuff while he was here with us, you know, not making plans or anything. I'm like, well, actually, we don't want to play with you anymore. And we're playing with somebody else, and we've got some shows booked. So he you know, obviously freaked out about it. You know? So, but, you know, breaking up is hard to do.
I had left Alternative Tentacles, and I was managing Mike Patton and Mr. Bumble and all Mike's other band.
I had 3 or 4 records that had no home, that I didn't want to sell to any other label. Didn't feel comfortable with it. So me and Greg, my partner at Ipecac, were like, start a label, fuck it.
I just contacted some distribution people, and we kind of set it up to where we would put Phantomas out ourselves. And then I told Buzz, I told all the guys from Phantomas, here's how we're going to do it. We're just going to do it ourselves. And Buzz was like, oh, really? Interesting. What are you doing for distribution? I was like, well, we've got Caroline in the US, we've got Southern in Europe, we've got Shock in Australia, so we've got the world kind of covered. So, you know, we're going to see how it goes. It's like, because the Melvins don't have a home.
What really made the label sort of take shape was when we told Buzz, hey, we may be starting this label. He's like, hey, I got 4 records, you can have it. Bam.
Oh my God, you know, here we go. We weren't even really thinking at that time of being a real record label. We were kind of just going to be an outlet for all Mike's projects. It was like, if we have the Melvins, we're going to be a real record label.
So the Melvins, in a sense, became the backbone, you know, besides my stuff, of the label.
We were trying to decide on what to call our label, and it was Buzz that suggested Ipecac. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. Mike knew what it was, and was like, oh yeah, that's great. You know, it makes people sick, just like our music.
Buzz came out to Minneapolis and produced was actually turned out to be the last Cows record, but we didn't know that at the time. And he and I really worked well together, or at least I thought so.
Yeah, Kevin played really weird, and I liked that a lot. I always liked the Cows. I thought they were great. Certainly one of the most underrated bands. Underappreciated, really. Mm-hmm.
They were great. They're really great live. I like their records.
Yeah, and I didn't really want to play with somebody that was like, rock school 101 type of, I never have really.
The way I've always played is I just played what I wrote. I never learned anyone else's stuff.
We didn't have to describe weird to Kevin. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was already there. He called me not long after that and said, "Hey, I've got this idea. I don't know how you feel about it." And he asked me, and I was like, I was pretty excited, but at the same time, I was a little bit worried because I wasn't sure I could do it. It was such a different style of music.
He had a lot of confidence issues in his own ability to do stuff, which I never could understand because I never had any doubt that he could do stuff. He had doubt.
He called me and dragged me into it.
I remember a call from Buzz where he was like, "How would you like to help us try to commit career suicide?" I was like, "Oh, that sounds good. Count us in. What do you got in mind?" He was like, "Well, I'd like to release a record every 2 months, a trilogy. So within 6 months, the whole trilogy is out."
Bootlicker, Crybaby, help me, Maggot. So it was like that. So it's 3.
And he knew how stupid that sounded because, you don't do that. The industry standards, you don't put a record out every 2 months.
And we were like, maybe a little bit too many. Buzz was like, "This is what I want to do."
But I said, "Yeah, sounds great. And if anyone was going to do it, why wouldn't it be the Melvins?"
Kevin lived in New York.
I had all that stuff written before he joined
San Francisco. Buzz lived in LA, and Buzz had all these demos that he sent us. So I guess he had a chance to listen to that stuff, but we didn't really have much time to rehearse it. And then he sent me the demo for the Bootlicker, and I liked it so much that I was like, "Oh, I really want to be on this record," and that really helped push me into making it work. So he just called me on the phone, really. Started sending me tapes, telling me lists of songs to learn, stuff like that.
Yeah, come in and we'll start working on this, and it won't take long. And we're not worried.
It didn't take long. We did 3 records back to back. The other thing is those guys were really flexible about. They wanted me in there. They didn't want me to sound the way the other bass players sounded. They asked me to do it because they liked what I did. So there was a meeting of styles. It totally worked out great because I played with several different drummers, and often it's hard for me to find that niche to lock in. And I never had that trouble with Dale. The feeling was there. So. It was a different way of playing, and the song structures were very different, but I didn't really have to shift styles. I just had to learn their songs, which was great. It was a real relief to me.
That was fun. That whole thing was great. And we all worked together really great. Had a great time.
Yeah. It was really fun making those records.
Yeah.
If you put a gun to my head, I'd probably say the favorite Melvins record I was on was Bootlicker.
They had said that they were going to be releasing 3 records, and that whatever year that was, the Maggot, the Crybaby, and the Bootlicker. And the Crybaby was going to be collaborations with other bands, sort of other vocalists, but also other bands, and asked if I'd like to do that, and I said I would love to.
It's like, who should we get? I just remember making our dream list of, okay, here's who we should hit up, and I remember the whole thing like, let's contact Leif Garrett, and it was like, yeah, why not? And I don't even know where it came from. I don't think it was my idea. Maybe it was Buzz's. And I tracked it down on the computer, and I found him, and we're like, okay, well, I found Leif Garrett. The rest, it's up to you. And he's like, yeah, I think he'd be good to sing Smells Like Teen Spirit. it just was absurd, but it all made absolutely complete sense for it to happen. Everything they do seems to make sense.
They'll do things for the hell of it. And they'll do things to amuse themselves. And they'll do things because, it's a cool idea, not because there's any financial strategy.
Anytime they turn in a new record, they're excited about it. They're like, yeah, we're really proud of this. I hope somebody is into it.
I was aware of them, but I hadn't really followed what they were doing.
Well, we had lost board to the Tool guys, and I thought it would be great to do a record after all those records we've done. Do a real collaboration with somebody.
The idea was that it to be some kind of blending, but we didn't know exactly how that, in what way. So it was more fluid as we were recording it. It was kind of turning out in a certain way.
Well, we would do stuff and send it to him, and he'd come and get it at the studio, and then he'd come back with it. Like I was like, I don't know, maybe you can come up with something that's 3 minutes long for his intro. He brings back something that's exactly 3 minutes.
You said 3 minutes. Roughly.
It is.
No, it's to the T, 3 minutes.
Yeah. I would work on stuff and then give it to them.
I don't think we had any of the songs really worked out.
No.
And they would add to it, or they would go back and forth like that.
So, like with Bloated Pope, he and I practiced it for about. I learned it. He probably wrote it before, but I learned it in like a half hour, and we're tracking it.
Yeah.
Tracked it, done. And there's a few other songs like that on there too. It was like learn it, track it, done. That's kind of the way we've been working lately too.
For years.
And quite a lot of the time I would be in the studio. Even some of the parts that I wasn't so much on, I wasn't involved, but I would be there exchanging ideas and throwing ideas around and stuff like that with him.
We wanted to do something where we use stuff that we did, stuff that he did, and then stuff that we did together. On the same record.
They were doing the kind of thing that I would normally do, and I was doing things that they might normally do.
A lot of people will say like, "Oh, I really like that thing that Lespard did on that song." Oh, actually, he wasn't on that song. Or vice versa. You're like, that thing you did on that thing with Lespard. Oh, I don't need to play on that.
We played on that. Yeah, that part of it.
Things like that. That was a lot of fun to see people's reaction. Disliking or disliking, not knowing actually who contributed, assuming that I had done this or they had done that.
The whole record, when we were doing it, we were doing a record with Jello Biafra.
At the same time.
Right, but Jello doesn't get up until like he's a night owl. He has insomnia, so he won't go to bed till 6 in the morning and wake up at 4 in the afternoon.
Melvins came to studio by 11 or noon, and then they made Pixel Maroma Empire till 5 or 6 in the evening. And the Jello showed up, and then we worked on Jello's album, Jello Melvin's 2 albums.
We were touring with Hank Williams III, who Jello was a pretty big fan of. And I know he'd seen us before and kind of never really got the band.
I saw him over the years, but I didn't really know him.
Wasn't that into what we were doing, Certainly Melvins aren't an easy sell. So anyway, but at this particular show, we played an Alice Cooper song.
They started Halo of Flies,
which is a real long, epic number.
Well, oh my God, they're not really going to play all of Halo of Flies.
Jello saw that and came downstairs in the dressing room.
Oh my God, they are!
Like, I finally get you guys. You guys played that Alice Cooper song, and it was amazing.
And then I was hooked from that point onward and told him, yo, sorry about not being as attentive as I could have been, but now I get it. I really like this shit.
Our bass player, Kevin, said, nah, you're just drunk. Like, well, I'm not that drunk.
And within months, we were talking about making noise together.
So we talked to him, and we were kind of joking with him, knowing that he had a bunch of trouble with the Dead Kennedys guys.
They approached me about going on tour doing all Dead Kennedys songs.
We were joking. We were like, hey, you should hire us to be your backup band. We'll call ourselves the Dead Canaries.
while with the other Dead Kennedys. Buzz was just always like, man, I don't understand. I don't understand why he doesn't make a statement by going out there and doing a tour and calling himself the Dead Kennedys and playing all the Dead Kennedys songs because they're doing it with a fake Jello. Why doesn't he do it with another band and he'll blow them away because people will come see him and nobody will go see the fake Dead Kennedys.
You know, Buzz and Dale were really offended by that and thought maybe it was something that could be done. I thought, hey, wait a minute, if we're going to do this at all, I'd rather do new stuff. I got plenty of other songs. You want to make a record?
It's hard when talking about Jello not to start sliding into an impersonation of him.
He's like, well, I don't know about that, but I would do a collaboration with you guys. So he's the one that kind of initiated the whole thing, the whole project. He's like, it'd be great. We could write songs, and we worked it kind of around doing that Alice Cooper song with him. But we worked for a long time. He would, like I said, he initiated it, and he would come down to LA and stay and work for a couple of weeks on songs with us.
Since I'm useless with instruments and played the original Dead Kennedy stuff, I wrote single string on a guitar till Klaus told me, you sing good enough, just sing us the parts.
He knows specifically what he wants guitars to do. He doesn't sing super melodically, but he would keep singing it to you till you hit the note he thought it should be. No, boing, boing, boing. No, until you hit one. But he knew.
How he writes songs is he'll sing little parts into a tape recorder, guitar lines, vocal lines, even guitar lead lines. He'll sing into a tape recorder, and then sing the song to you, and then you kind of figure out the riff.
Leading up to me getting fired was, things slowly getting more and more fucked up.
With Kevin, again, he had his demons that were kind of affecting the band and affecting his life big time. We certainly gave him a chance to kind of get it together, and we certainly helped him try to get it together, but in the end, he couldn't. So we were, again, looking for a new bass player.
Finally, those guys were like, look, we can't work with you. And I was like, it was very upsetting. I'm not going to pretend I wasn't upset. I was incredibly upset.
It was really heavy. They were really worried about Kevin.
As far as my end, it got to the point where I just felt like I couldn't deal with it anymore,
Really, to be fair, I was acting very poorly. And it happened. And my biggest regret is just the problems I created for them.
The extracurricular activities were way out of hand with Kevin. And I just felt like it was detrimental for him and for us.
Yeah, he told me later, he said, I could just see where it was going and I didn't want to watch it.
Yeah, no, I knew he wasn't going to destroy the band. I just didn't have any interest in his destruction trip that he was on. It's nightmarish.
I know Buzz and Dale well enough to know that they wouldn't just do it for no reason. It was a real setback for them to get rid of me. They lost a year. I know Buzz was really a little demoralized.
It was almost like he needed to get to a point where everything was falling apart for him to get it back. Honestly, if we hadn't done that, I don't think he'd be alive.
I was just sinking so deep. And that last tour, before I got fired, I remember, and I'd never had this feeling, I remember I had this enormous feeling of dread when the tour started. And I didn't know, God knows why, I didn't know why I felt that way. Like really thinking something bad was going to happen. What amazing insight I had.
It's hard to do that kind of stuff when you know you're right and they don't agree, So it wasn't like I didn't like playing with Kevin. I liked it a whole lot. But it was time to move on. That was the right thing to do. Sometimes the right thing to do is the hardest thing to do.
I don't resent them for firing me, nothing. It worked out the way it did. And I don't know if they could say the same thing, but I'm super relieved to be friends with them again. It's really good. It's a big deal to me.
Buzz could play any song ever written, like, and make it better. You know, like I'm always been fascinated by the few cover songs they've done because they can rock that song harder than the original. It's insane what that guy can do.
We did this covers record just recently. Everyone's Loves Sausage, and we got a lot of people to collaborate on that with us. Scott Kelly doing the Venom song.
Buzz just kind of called me and said, I have an idea, we're going to do these kind of split singles, and we're thinking we're going to do a couple of Queen songs, and we'd like you to sing on it. And, I'm on the phone, and I'm like, oh yeah, awesome, that sounds great. Click, and then I immediately start panicking, like, okay, I'm going to sing Freddie Mercury on a Melvins cover, No problem.
We like doing all kinds of stuff like that, and hopefully we'll continue to do more. We have lots of plans. We have plans from that just didn't develop or work out quite yet.
Like Bowie never called, is that what you mean? Or the guys from Venom never, hello, Buzz, you're a fucking cunt, That never happened.
Buzz called me and just said, we want you to do a Roxy Music song. And I immediately thought of In Every Dream Home a Heartache, because that song just cracked me up even when I was in high school. And it seemed like the definitive Brian Ferry kind of vision of the sterile suburb. But then at the end, I blew up your body, but you blew my mind. Always thinking of the dude in the white dinner jacket with the perfect hair and everything singing that was just so hilarious. And I think they knew that I could do Ferry's voice too.
We brought that up way back when we recorded with him before, and he said, you're the only guys to ever think of that, to ever notice that. And we're like, it was totally obvious. But yeah, it's funny, right? Because it's great, he made it work. And I couldn't believe how well he nailed those vocals and so quickly.
Your swimming pool eyes.
I could see them doing a Kelly Clarkson song, but they're going to do it Melvin style, and it'll sound like something they wrote. Whereas if Kelly Clarkson did God of Thunder, I don't think so.
And playing with Clem Burke on that was like a dream come true, That was really fun. I was really happy to have that be the case. Clem's one of my favorite drummers, and the guys, Dale and Cody, were beside themselves. That's like monster fanboys.
We have a mutual friend with Clem Burke, our friend Bob, and we had met Clem a couple times before that, and then we were working on the Bride Screams Murder album, and our friend Bob brought Clem down to the studio to just come and check it out.
I'm good. See you. How you doing? Good. Very strange.
We were a little nervous for sure when he was coming into the studio, especially since at the time we were doing some drum overdubs right in front of him, so it was like, oh God. Anyway, and Buzz wasn't there. Buzz had gone home for the day, and we were just doing some drum stuff or whatever. And Buzz was like, oh man, you didn't get him to play on anything? I was like, I was too nervous to ask him, I did fear of rejection that he would say no. And then our friend Bob had told us like, oh no, he'd probably do it. And so, well, why don't you ask him? And we didn't quite know, what we'd have him do, but Buzz had an idea of doing a kink song that he'd wanted to do for a long time. And I think at first Clem was like, well, why do they need 3 drummers?
What is it, like 16 bars or something?
Yeah. Great, it's like getting a free Clem Burke drum lesson.
As far as like a drummer in a pop band, he's the king for sure. Having somebody that you're very much a fan of and influenced by, and somebody who's drumming I really like a lot. To have him come in and say that he likes our band and likes our drumming is really great, really special.
Can we play it one more time?
Sure.
My first reaction when they decided to work with Big Business was why. And it was nothing against Big Business, but it was like, when you have Dale Crover, do you really need a second drummer?
On the very last Nirvana tour in Europe, playing with those guys, and we had talked about doing this idea with Dave Grohl, and he was even coming out and playing a song with us on this tour that we were doing. He was playing Night Goat with us, and we were playing 2 shows in Munich at this old airport turned into a club, really spooky place. And on the second show, Dave was going to come out and play the whole set. And the first show, there had been a couple shows prior where he'd come out and play one song. And during sound checks, we were kind of rehearsing the whole set with him. So, you know, we knew that it would work from doing that. Anyway, Dave playing the whole set didn't happen because that's when Kurt canceled the rest of the shows, said he had laryngitis, went to Rome, and that's when he OD'd the first time.
We did some shows with Joe and Biafra, or we were his backing band, and they played with us once. Big Business did. Once or twice, I can't remember. And we knew about Jared and knew he was a good singer, really good bass player. I had played a show with Dead Low Tide when Cody was the drummer. And I remember thinking, man, here's a guy that could play, because we've been thinking about the double drummer thing for a long time. Here's a guy that could actually do it, you know, who could play this stuff. And, because, you know, it's not a simple thing to do.
I remember playing in Tacoma with those guys and doing a sound check. And Dale and Buzz were watching me check my drums, and like got done, and Buzz came up and he's like, "Hey, me and Dale, like, we really like your drumming a lot."
We were done playing with Kevin. We were pretty discouraged. Like, I was not ready to start over. You know? I mean, it was miserable. You know, and I did it that year. Fortunately, I did a whole bunch of work with Phantom Loss that year when we got ready to put the band back together again. And I said, we should just ask the Big Business guys both and just do something completely different. I hope he was honking at me.
When Buzz told me over the phone, like, oh, we're adding a second drummer. We're, you know, this band Big Business, we're incorporating them. You know, they're guys that used to be in Carp and Murder City, and we're bringing those guys in. They're going to join the band. And I literally remember I'm being on the phone with him. I'm like, what the fuck are you thinking? Like, seriously, you're the one band in the world that doesn't need a second drummer. You know, I can list off 100 bands who could actually benefit from a second. You know, you have the monster. What? And I remember telling him that, like, I don't get it, dude. That doesn't make any sense to me. You know, seeing it live and just going, holy fuck, he actually just upped the game. You know, 25 years into his career, he actually just took a big step forward. It's better. Who the fuck gets better 25 years into a rock and roll career? Like, literally makes a huge advancement.
So we knew with the Big Business guys we wanted to do something completely different. That was new, that we'd never done before, and you know, get a bass player who can sing, who's a lead singer in and of himself, and a drummer who's good enough to play the stuff that we're doing. And I think it came out great. It's really good. You know, we've done a lot of work with those guys. Done a lot of records, a lot of recording.
Don't look down. You might be ready. Your feet touch ground. All in good time.
of shows, hundreds and hundreds of shows. I think the proof is there, you know.
I learned from Dale is that, like, you know, he also, as well as I, were cadence drummers, and we you know we were trained and learned a lot of our drum chops in marching. You know, having like Cody as a second drummer allowed that core style drumming present.
Did the Grateful Dead have two drummers?
They did, but Jesus Christ,
I think
it's so
that it was
boring.
nice that the Melvins finally became one step closer to being influenced by the Grateful Dead.
So then, how do we get the band? Is that what I want to know?
I called up Jared and I'm like, hey, we want to know if you guys would be interested in joining the Melvins.
Like, whoa, wow, that's a lot of, like, this is really sudden and totally unexpected, and I have no idea. Like, I mean, it'd be cool, but Cody and I have big business, and that's kind of an important thing. He's like, oh, Cody too. As if it was just like I would have naturally assumed, like, oh, well, of course Cody too. Oh yeah, of course. Why not? Of course you need a second drummer. Why? Because you're not good enough by yourself, so you need help.
And we invited them down and just had them learn a few songs that we could jam on. And we knew right away that it was going to work and it would work out great.
So, like, I don't know. I felt pretty nervous. I think we were both kind of like, make this really good. And like every time we'd be like to Buzz or Dale, like, what do you think about this? They'd be like, you'll figure it out. It'll be fine. Like, that was just like the attitude. They're like, it's going to be good. It's going to work. It'll be fine. So it was just constant, just like, all right, like, they're not worried about it. Like, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't freak out.
We just knew it'd be really good, doing a lot of stuff that was in sync with each other, and then also going off from each other too. I think we worked harder on drum parts in the beginning and just kind of trying to figure out what the other person was playing, more so than we do now, just because I think now we've done it for so long that we're really comfortable with each other and it's easy for us.
Because like every time I'd be like, I just don't know what to play here. And like Dale, just unflappable Dale, just like, just use your instincts. Okay.
I mean, what a fucking bizarre idea. Just to totally take a whole other band and incorporate it into your band and run with it. The big business guys get more comfortable inside there and can stretch out a little bit more. And I think, that union between Dale and Cody becoming some sort of Siamese symbiotic fuckfest weirdness. It's awesome.
The two drummer thing is just a complete mindfuck. That's amazing. And it just worked perfectly because, Cody's left-handed, and so you get this mirror image thing going on, and it's just mind-blowing. But what an awesome way to reinvent your band.
Cody and Dale's drum styles to me are a polar opposite almost to me when I see it off the bat. And then when you see them play together, it's like it's a magnet, man. And they're just like filling every void that each other has ever thought about.
Play within and without each other. So we do a lot of that. And there's a lot of just kind of knowing what the other guy's going to do. A lot of ESP going on. And I think it's just us being kind of comfortable with each other.
Obviously I have a real fondness for the very early years with Mike Dillard, because that's when I first saw them and I thought they were a great band then. But I fucking now with the big business kids in there, I mean, they just keep doing amazing shit,
Adding the other drummer, and I thought that was a kind of a bold move to make that late in their career. So hats off to them for that, for sure.
We really knew that we could do a lot with two drummers, and we feel that we've only scratched the surface. Even though we go and play with other people and they do their own band, we'll always come back to the two drummer thing, just because it's fun and it's brutal live. It's super brutal seeing two drummers do that stuff. It's unfair to other bands, which it should be, because we'll knock your dick in the dirt with this lineup.
Buzz, despite his hatred of those early years he spent in rural Washington, He never forgot the friends, the people he loved.
Playing with Mike Dillard again was certainly a weird idea. You know, let's get the old drummer in the band.
Let's go back to when we were sitting in a fucking shitty, stinky garage or basement, and let's bring Dillard back in. He's, you know, it'll be fun.
Alternative Tentacles had put out the original Melvins demos, which are called the Mangled demos. I remember saying, "Oh, you guys should do shows now since you put that record out." And Buzz is like, that's a good idea, but you have to play bass because there's no way I'm gonna play with Lucan, and I'm sure there's no way he's gonna want to do this. Yeah, sure, I'll do it. The thing that kind of made it happen was Jello Biafra was having his big Jello 5-0, his 50th birthday party. We got Dillard to play with us and had that version of the Melvins play. And so that was the first time we did it, and we pretty much just played old songs.
To go back and play with Buzz, first of all, was weird. It wasn't weird, it was cool because just being reunited in a musical setting was really good again.
Mike can only really play with us, you know, when he has some vacation time.
I mean, Dillard's got a family, bullshit like that. Makes it to where we can't, you know. I keep telling him, abandon them. Just abandon the family. Just leave.
Just disappear.
Disappear.
You know, hanging out with Mike, it's just he's definitely one of us.
Thanks, buddy.
One of us.
I mean, big, dumb, stupid looking. Yeah. Big, dumb, stupid looking.
And it shows. It is fun. It fucking reflects that it's still valid. They're still able to go back and capture something, and that's where a lot of other people fall short, and those guys don't, because they pull it back in. You know, they're willing to go back there and do something about it.
If I said that Dale Crover is the single nicest person in the music industry, Trevor Dunn might be number 2.
I don't have any real objectivity anymore, you know, because I'm part of this family and this and these voices.
So yeah, like watching the Melvins Light Tour, where all of a sudden they're introducing a stand-up bass and making it fucking work, and not only work but work righteously. I mean, that's amazing. You know, that he can recognize that. And plus, then Trevor is such an insane talent that, you know, what he's bringing to the table was phenomenal.
Well, with Trevor, after we'd done 3 albums with the big business guys and hundreds and hundreds of shows all over the world, I felt like it was time for us to me and Dale to do something different. I saw him play with Nels Klein, where he played the stand-up bass to an amp.
I was playing upright and electric bass in that group, and you know, it's definitely a lot. There's quite a bit of jazz elements in that band, but also rock. And Buzz, I invited Buzz that show, and he showed up, and afterwards he said, "Man, we got to incorporate some of that stuff in the Melvins," you know, because I was using the bow and you know, doing free improv, and I was kind of surprised.
I had played with Trevor a whole lot in Phantom Moss. I knew he was a really good player, a really good guy. I traveled with him extensively, so I knew he wasn't psychotic. He might be crazy, but he's not gonna, you know, he's not psychotic. So I knew that touring wasn't gonna be a problem.
I mean, he also has been getting more into jazz in the past few years. He's been really into some of the Electric Miles stuff and a few different jazz things, which is, you know, again, it's surprising.
Adding a stand-up bass, yeah, that sounds a little bit crazy, you know, on the surface. But if you saw the shows, you realize, hey, it's a Melvin show. It looks different, it sounds a little different, but it's still the same animal.
I had this idea to do this, maybe try this Melvins Light thing, which is us playing through me playing through a smaller amp, him playing through standard bass, and through an amp, and Dale playing a smaller drum set. And we set up some shows here in California where it was like, I think it was like Fresno, Bakersfield, San Luis Obispo.
I mean, I don't know how long Buzz had been thinking about it, but I feel like I think it was when we were doing that first sort of warm-up tour in California. I was staying at his place, and one morning he got up and
I had this idea for a long time that I wanted to do all 50 states plus DC in 51 days.
said, "Man, I have this idea to play all 50 states in 50 days." And I said, "That's insane." And the next day he got up and said, "Man, I don't know, I can't stop thinking about it."
I go, this lineup, I think we can do it. It's small, it's compact, there's less people. And so we started planning it then. That was a year and a half before we actually started that tour.
Literally the next day he called his booking agent, and the guy said, that's nuts.
First day I talked to him, they were like, "You're insane. That's never gonna work. That's the craziest thing we've ever heard." The next day I talked to him and they go, "We think it's a great idea. We could totally do it, you know."
But if you really want to do it, we should start booking it now, which was a year in advance, because there's no flexibility with that. You know, you can't take a day off and move days around. And they had to be really careful with the routing so that we weren't killing ourselves, you know, with 8-hour drives every day.
So we booked that tour and had that tour booked before we had the record recorded. So a full year before we did our first show, we had it booked.
Literally, it seemed like from my perspective, 3 days after his initial idea, they started booking it. So that's not the way I work. I sit on ideas for years.
I know that he got the idea from George Thorogood because he had tried to do it back in the 80s.
I was exhausted every night, all the way to the end. I was just beat. I would go back to the hotel and crash. And so I really needed my sleep, and I needed to keep my stamina up. So
we were saying this stuff in the press. Like, yeah, George Thorogood had tried to do this tour, but didn't make it. We're going to try to do it. We're going to try to go for the Guinness Book of World Records of doing all 50 states. We'll throw in Washington, D.C., making it 51 shows in a row.
The bulk of the tour, really the middle 5 weeks of it, really kind of flew by. It was towards the end of the tour we suddenly realized there were 10 shows left, and we were all sort of surprised that it had gone that fast.
Generated a lot of hype, which was the idea. We're gonna do this stunt, total P.T. Barnum hype tour, which worked. Worked great.
I just never want to be in a position where I'm tied into one thing ever again. It's too hard, when something happens. So that's why after those 3 records, we were able to do that record with Trevor, and the Freak Puke record, Melvins Light, and record with Mike Dillard, and that's all part of the same thing.
What happened with this acoustic thing was it was something I wanted to do for a long time. I didn't know if it would really work. So I did this thing with Ernie Ball Strings where I go on there and let them screw with my guitar, and then I play a live acoustic song. And I did that mostly because they were super nice to do it, but also as a way for me to see if anyone was interested in that sort of thing. And it went well. I got a good reaction from people, so I was like, okay. So then I recorded a 10-inch EP with 6 songs, 2 of which are acoustic Melvin songs. That went good. So then I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to do an album, full album, do the full album, and then do a bunch of touring all over the whole world by myself.
I'm not sure. Brand new thing, so we'll see.
So this is the first time I've ever done this, and since you guys didn't pay, you can't bitch. Okay? Or you can bitch, but no one can.
I didn't want to do anything that was too obscure or too singer-songwriter. Obscure meaning, you know, like me up there singing like a bad version of James Taylor, which it seems to be the main thing that people do with acoustic guitars. I didn't want to do that. That's not me.
What good is a dead beast? Unleashed that with following, holding the head of the world. Not slowly, not lightly.
I wanted to do something that was more like what I would sound like with an acoustic. And the funny thing, you hear some absurd stuff, like people saying things like, well, you know, this acoustic record just sounds like Melvins with acoustic. Well, what would it sound like? I write the stuff, you know. I was appreciated everywhere I went in a way that I could never have imagined, and I couldn't have been happier. I'm more than willing to go out there and do that a lot more in the future. You know, it went good. I had a great time doing it, but you know, you're up there by yourself. I don't have any other instrumentation to hide behind. I kind of like that. It's a roll of the dice every single night, and you gotta convince these people on your own. And I like that. I like that a great deal.
Buzz called me up and said, you know, this solo thing's going better than I thought it would, and I feel bad. Can you? I heard you guys are kind of looking for someone to, you know, fill in for Mario. Do you think you could throw the guy a bone?
When you're being initiated into off, you've got to like give up part of your life. So he's doing this first tour for free. What he has to do, he has to load everything in and out of the trailer on the van.
We're going to be in Florida, and we're going to be right in the middle of Alligator Alley, and we're going to stop for gas, and I'm just going to drive off and leave all these guys at the gas station.
When it comes to the Melvins, to me, it's like they don't sit around doubting whether they should do it anymore. Do people care? Or should we break up to make people care about us so they'll go to our next reunion tour? It's like, no, just keep going. Don't ask anybody's permission whether they want you there or not. You know, just keep going.
Jared from the Big Business told us that his girlfriend is going to have a baby. And so we had this big tour we're going to plan. And so it didn't seem like a good idea for him to go. So we got Jeff Pincus from the Butthole Surfers to sit in on that tour. And it went great. He did a great job. We had a lot of fun.
Available to open up for the Melvins for tour. And I was like, well, fuck yeah. I don't know what's on my schedule, but of course, we'll do that. And turned out that it was for me to play bass with them and for Dale to play drums with Honky, which he's done before. So they basically it was a good money saving move by Buzz because he's quite a businessman, and he got a really great deal at on a really mid-range kind of band.
And we just kind of got to talking and decided that maybe we should do more, and that we could involve Paul Leary.
I do an expanded album that's a Melvins album with me, Dale, Paul Leary, and Pincus. And the record, I'm really, really, really happy with it because we're huge fans of that stuff. Huge Bottle Service fans. I think Paul's one of my favorite guitar players of all time. So it's a real treat to be working with him.
So this was almost a way where we could work with him. And then also he brought in songs. Both those guys brought in songs, and which is good because I think if you're going to do a collaboration with somebody like that, let them do their thing.
Well, I got a call from Pincus one day asking if I was interested in playing on an album, and my first response was just hell yeah.
It was a really good experience working on this record, and I think Buzz, being a baseball fan like he is, he set up a song that's kind of like a lineup card for the hitters. And it starts off with a heavy hitter, and I think he thought he wrote the poppiest song, Brass Cupcake, to kind of pop up the record a little bit. And he got out-popped by Paul.
I'd written 3 songs before Pincus had contacted me, so I brought those to the table and got Dale to play drums on those. And then I took them home and edited and added guitars and had the boys come over to do some overdubs and whatnot at my house. Just one of those kind of things. Seemed to all happen really quick.
I think it's worked out great, we've been able to do different things with people like that and keep it interesting and make it method.
Those guys are so fun in the studio. They come in with a great positive attitude, and everybody listens to each other, and everybody wants to please each other, and at the end of the day, you're all smiling and joking as opposed to wanting to strangle each other.
People who are influenced by the Melvins don't really wear it on their sleeve that way. They're more inspired by the concept of the Melvins and the longevity and the humor and the art, stuff like that.
Their impact is so huge that it's not calculable at this point.
They bring a lot of people along for the ride, and those people who get on the bus have stayed on the bus.
Got to be the most unmistakable person anywhere, whether it's on stage or at a ballpark. Camera's on him, you're going to know that's Buzz.
I'm going to come around to this philosophy of just knowing what would Buzz Osborne do in each moment, and my life would be a lot easier.
Pleasantly surprised to find out that Buzz was a big sports fan, big baseball fan, so we were talking quite a bit about sports and baseball.
Buzz has a mind that moves in a non-linear direction.
It was pretty cool meeting Buzz and everybody in the band, and have been and always will be a big fan.
They stick up for the underdog, which is what punk rock is.
They surround themselves with really good people. They don't work with assholes and jerks and egos.
It's just very family oriented, which rang a little light bulb. It rang and it turned bright, and it said, that's the key to make a band last for 30 years, to just like the people you're with.
There were a couple of times where I'm like, man, the Melvins are going to just endure because these fuckers are great. And I don't care if I'm like the only one who knows that.
Things for the band are better than ever. I mean, we just did a really successful U.S. tour, which was, I don't know, possibly our best one that we've done as far as attendance, a lot of sold out shows.
I don't feel like it's a good idea to start saying this show's important, this one's not as important. They're all important. They're all part of the same thing.
I think that
nose to the grindstone work ethic is why the Melvins have been able to continue playing and even growing their audience all these years.
What's weird that I've noticed is that our audience still seems to stay the same age, 25 to 35, all over. So, certainly I can see there's older people at our gigs, but they're the minority. There's definitely a younger crowd, and you look out and you go, yeah, we'd already been a band for like 10, 20 years before this person was even born.
I just like the fact that they didn't strive to be like anything else. I mean, they sort of created their own thing, and then people follow them.
It was really interesting watching an audience come to them because, back then nobody liked it. Everybody fucking hated it.
I'm happy that there's people that want to see us everywhere we go. I'm really happy about that. It's good.
I think they let everybody know pretty early on that they weren't, that they were just kind of going to do their own thing.
With the Melvins, it wasn't just about the music. It was about the attitude that was fueling that music, And we just naturally gravitated towards that. We just naturally gravitated towards the fact that it was like, fuck you. We're going to fucking play what we want, and we don't give a shit whether you're with us or not. This is what we want to fucking do.
As music fans, we operate the way that we would appreciate other bands operating. That's the best way to look at it. Yeah.
The strongest thing I've learned from them and taken from all of that is that the vision, your own vision, is to be defended on all fronts, and no compromise is a good thing.
There are groups that have lasted a really long time, but they're just constantly repeating themselves, and that kind of gets old. And then there are artists that constantly reinvent themselves, which is very difficult to do. And it's like, that's going to be more of a roller coaster ride because you're not going to be able to please everyone all the time. So there are going to be periods. It's, your career is going to be judged upon like these periods in like David Bowie.
It makes sense to me when you look at the arc of a lot of people's careers, where there might be like a really high and the lows are almost identical at the end and in the beginning, but the joy of doing it never really changes. Sometimes the high is the area where the joy of doing it is the lowest. I've seen that a lot.
One of a kind, for sure. 30 years, still try to make. I can think of many bands or artists like that. Maybe David Bowie is like that. Each album sounds different,
And I think when you play the music you want to play and you don't consider outsiders, you just consider what do we want to do. You're sort of always happy. It's like going to a burrito place where they go flour or corn and you just make your own burrito. You always love that burrito because you made it yourself, So they're like an awesome burrito.
That's what's amazing about them is they have this ability to adapt, yet still be themselves.
I don't know what Buzz's imagination would have, but if if he and Dale wanted to play with, if they want to play with Jello again, or if they wanted to play with Devo or whoever,
or be in the Stooges,
whatever, that could totally work.
I have seen the Melvins collaborate with many, many different things and people, so I would love to one day.
Well, that's good because we're going to ask you.
Okay. Let's do it. It's done.
Excellent.
We're a particular incarnation of the Melvins.
Yeah.
And when it's happening, it's happening. But, ultimately, the Melvins are Buzz and Dale.
There's no end in sight for the Melvins, that's for sure.
I can't foresee us stopping anytime soon. I don't know why we would. The Rolling Stones can hoist themselves on stage. Why can't we?
Good luck to you, and it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, they were the first, dude. They were the first and they'll be the last, I'm sure.
The last band standing are the Melvins.
Long live Melvins. That's all. That's the best I can do, man.